Close your eyes and imagine one of the most captivating islands in the Mediterranean, surrounded by azure seas, majestic rocks reaching for the clouds, and the scent of lemon trees mixing with the air, the Isle of Capri, out of this world. Still, if you listen closely to some overheard whispers of history, you'll hear how this magnificent island was once the subject of the Roman Empire's darkest secrets, its most unbelievable depravities. This was the secluded retreat where Emperor Tiberius spent the last 10 years of his reign. So what pushed Rome's most powerful man to flee the capital and imprison himself on this island? And those chilling stories told by ancient historians. This is not just an emperor's retirement. This is a story of power, paranoia, perversion, and perhaps the darkest desires. Tiberius Claudius Nero was actually not young when he ascended the throne of Rome. As Emperor Augustus's stepson, throughout his life, he had achieved significant successes in the military. He was a disciplined and capable commander. At the same time, he was an introverted, suspicious, and perhaps a bit melancholic character. His relationship with Augustus was always complex. On one hand, seen as the future owner of the throne, on the other, constantly sidelined. Once, he even threw everything aside and went into self-imposed exile on the island of Rhodes, living there a quiet life for years. Yet when the others eventually died, one by one, fate pushed Tiberius down a path he did not want, to the pinnacle of the Roman Empire. He was in his 50s when he ascended to the throne, perhaps too old, too tired for the burdens, intrigues, and betrayals that came with power. He hated the Roman Senate, disgusted by the corruption of court life. He suspected conspiracies against him everywhere, by everyone, especially the dangers whispered into his ear. By the ambitious Praetorian prefect Sejanus, fueled his paranoia. It was in this atmosphere that Tiberius, in 26 AD, decided to leave Rome, withdrawing first to the region of Campania in the south, and finally to the island of Capri. Health problems, the official reason. The whispers, though, spoke of his disgust for the Senate and the Roman people, fear of assassination, perhaps just an absolute desire for solitude and control. Capri was not far from the mainland, but its imposing cliffs and difficult access served as a perfect natural fortress. The emperor built 12 legendary villas here. Each was dedicated to one of the gods. Most famous was Villa Jovis, at the island's highest point. From here he could watch over the entire Bay of Naples, ruling his empire from afar. But when Tiberius withdrew to Capri, the rumors that soon started to circulate in Rome became stranger, almost unbelievable. What was this emperor doing on his little island? And here is where the ancient historians, especially Suetonius, a lover of scandal and gossip, make their entry. According to him, if he is to be believed, the retirement villa was not just a retreat, but also a place of unimaginable depravity. Suetonius says that Tiberius filled his villas with rooms designed for his private pleasures, adorned with erotic paintings and sculptures. He tells that the emperor gathered young men and women he called spintriae, who enacted various sexual acts for him to watch. Even further, he mentions a rumor that Tiberius called small children minnows and played in the swimming pools in dubious games. He is so reprehensible that Suetonius himself noticed his revulsion in writing of these things. The stories of cruelty are at least as horrific as the allegations of depravity. It is said that Tiberius would throw servants and guests off Villa Jovis's imposing cliffs for the slightest mistake or act of disobedience. One fisherman was said to have been presented to the emperor with a fresh catch without being asked for it, and in return had his face mutilated with the fish itself. The stories lift Capri from an island of pleasure to the ultimate den of fear and torture. Therefore, how much credence should we give to these whispers? We have to remember that Suetonius wrote a century after Tiberius, and his aim was often sensationalism. He did not balk at using gossip and exaggerated stories in writing imperial history. The other major historian, Tacitus, presents Tiberius as a more nuanced figure. Yes, he describes his cruelty and paranoia, but he approaches the allegations of depravity on Capri with more caution, indicating that many might have been fabricated by Tiberius's enemies. But what was the truth? Was Tiberius indeed consumed by insanity and old age to become such a depraved monster, or was he just an old ruler who fled the chaos of Rome because he liked being alone? And was it this very privacy that fed the imagination of his foes and thus gave birth to these dark legends? Maybe the works that filled his villas were just collections. Maybe those sordid amusements were exaggerated banquets. Maybe those who were flung from high cliffs were actually guilty of treason. Whatever life on Capri was, Tiberius's influence on Rome was deadly. While he lived a solitary life on the island, he left the power in Rome in the hands of his ambitious deputy Sejanus. Sejanus, in turn, used that power ruthlessly to take out his own rivals. The treason trials mounted, senators and nobles executed or exiled one after another. How much Tiberius approved this, how much stemmed from Sejanus's manipulations, again, is another debating point in history. But surely that supposed paradise on Capri had been transformed into the remote control center for a corrupt reign in Rome until he learnt Sejanus was plotting against him and ordered him executed. But even this did not quell his paranoia. In 37 AD, Tiberius died near Capri at Misenum. Even his death was subject to rumor. Did he die naturally, or was he smothered by his successor Caligula? Indeed, it was only the dark legends of his 10 years on that exquisite Mediterranean island that remained. Tiberius's Capri represents a sort of awful question mark over what absolute power, isolation, and old age can make of a human being. Was what Suetonius describes the truth of horrific fantasy, or was it, as Tacitus insinuates, exaggerated slanders about the solitude of a grumpy old man? The truth, as always, possibly lies between these two extremes. Probably, Capri was both the sanctuary of Tiberius and a stage where its darkest aspects came out. This page in history is also like that unread text, obscured by shadows. And what does it whisper to us? With our hiding and then having control over everything, what secrets emerge within us? How does a place that appears like paradise become hell? What do you think? Is Tiberius among the most misunderstood emperors of history, or were the whispers of Capri the unvarnished truth? Let us discuss this mystery in the comments below. By subscribing, you can help us bring more such whispers from the depths of history to light.